I'm doing fantastic. How about you?
Good. It's been a crazy long weekend, as you know. Had a family emergency, but everything is good. God is good. Took care of us, and yeah, it was a memorable holiday weekend. How are you? This year's
That's
okay.
yes, that's fantastic. Yeah, my weekend was really nice, and I'm getting ready for a crazy week. So just pulling up energy, so I'm able to use it wisely. So it was really good.
Good.
So everybody, welcome to Find Your Wise podcast. My name
Yes.
is Indira, your leadership coach.
And I'm Yvonne, financial wise coach. Listen to me. The weekend's still here. Your financial life coach. Yes. And welcome to Find Your Wise. So, if you've ever had those thoughts like, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, or I'm not ready, I know we have suffered from that, then this episode is going to be for you, because self-doubt has stolen more dreams than failure ever could. And today we are taking those back.
That is fantastic. And let's be clear, self-doubt is not the same as humility.
Mm-mm.
Self-doubt is when you really have the fear of failing, and that overrides your desire to try.
Exactly. Self-doubt is believing that you have nothing or very little to offer. Humility is knowing that you don't know everything, but you're still willing to grow and try.
Absolutely. So let's show up in a moment when you really feel that you wanted to take a bold move, apply for something, for some position, launch a business, or even speak up.
Ooh, that's hard.
This is part of the things that we really have with self-doubt. And let's be honest, 70% of the people experience self-doubt at any state of in their life, and especially called sometimes imposter syndrome. But it's part of life, right?
Yes,
Yes. And I remember that we have one episode just talking about imposter syndrome. And in that episode, we were talking about all the different people at any stage of their life, they have suffered from that. So in reality, it's when you feel that you're not good enough and to make that bold move, but we're human. So we just wanted to give you that feeling and stay in control and allow you to dream and to be able to pursue those dreams.
Absolutely. Self-doubt, a lot of people think that it's like a character flaw, that something's wrong with them if they have a lot of self-doubt, but it's not. It's actually a signal, because it's showing you that you care about something, because it means that you're stepping into something that has meaning to you, because you don't doubt things that don't matter to you. But there's like a trap, because if you wait until you don't feel that self-doubt is there in order to move, you're never going to move at all. It's a lot of people think that self-doubt is like panic, anxiety, and things like that. And it's not always so glaringly obvious, because sometimes it's that little voice in your head, like you said, that we hear. And I've heard it a million times, like, who do you think you are to do that? The one that we have talked about a lot is, you're probably just not ready to do that. And that's what happened to us when we were thinking about this podcast. And that's why we're like, you know what? We're going to just jump in and see what happens.
And this is our episode number 25.
It is. I can't say that we've gotten a ton better, because I even screwed up my intro, but you know what? I'm human. And one that I still suffer with, and that you kind of talked about, is the imposter syndrome. And that's, they're going to see right through you, and they're going to think that you're a fraud or something like that. But in those times, it's when you really remind yourself that, you are brave enough to do this, and that you're just in a battle with fear.
Yes.
So, yeah, when you have self-control, and when you don't have control over your self-doubt, it's not just delaying your dreams, which is sometimes what we think it does. We think, oh, well, I'll just put it off for a little while, but it can totally derail your destiny and keep you from living a life that you really want. And there does come a time sometimes in your life when it is too late. So we're not going to pretend that this episode is just all about positive thoughts and all that kind of stuff, because we're going to name it for what it is. And we're going to really get to how to move through all this.
Yes. And one important thing is that it's important to know that this is something that is learned very often. It's something that we learn. And if we think about during our childhood, any experience that we have, for example, even we as a parent, I was having an interesting conversation with one of my child this weekend, and he was telling me that sometimes parents don't help their kids to really dream.
Very
because
true.
they're so focused on the things that we understand based on our experience that they need to do, that they focus on those things and forget about dreaming and pursuing the things that they like. So yes, that's based on that conversation. We sometimes have those crazy deep conversations.
Yes.
Yeah. And it is important that we understand and we go back to our childhood with the experience we have. Did we feel criticized? Did we feel bullied? Did we feel that
Mhm.
we play small? And that are the things that we
Yep.
carried throughout life. Another thing that we talk in almost every podcast is the society and the comparison.
Mhm.
I think today life is tough for certain people because before I just compare myself with my few friends and sisters around. Today, social media, everybody's so connected, but also
Mhm.
very disconnected at the same time.
Right.
And that causes a lot of things that we're not perfect or because we see that perfect life.
Mhm.
Another thing will be past failures. Those past failures also haunt us.
We don't ever
And
want to be embarrassed like that again.
yes, and that really push you like it froze you when you have to take action.
Yeah.
Or one that it's also very common that we have suffered many times is that when we go to unfamiliar space, to unfamiliar places or unfamiliar people, and let's be honest, our brain is designed to protect us.
Yes.
So it's hard for the brain to say, take, empower you. So every time that you feel yourself that you are stepping out of your comfort zone, that self doubt is going to come. But
Absolutely.
we have to let them know, I know this is new. I know that I'm learning, and let me learn. And through the doubt, I'm going to continue moving forward. And don't let that voice always scream louder to you.
Exactly. So basically, we're going to have to unlearn all of these things. And that can actually be harder than learning things in the first place, you know?
Yeah.
So, as you step into your growth and you're feeling those things and you're feeling uncomfortable, sometimes your brain wants to slam on the brakes and be like, no, don't go there. And it's not because you're not capable, more than likely you are very capable, but it's because you're stepping into something unknown and it is so scary and it feels really dangerous, even if that's exactly the direction that we need to go to get to where we need to be. A lot of people think that I'm having self-doubt, but it's not that easy. So I'm going off track. This isn't what I shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
And it can actually be a perfectly good sign that you're going in the right direction because you're growing. And growth is really uncomfortable most of the time. So,
Yes, I was. Now that you mentioned that, one of the conversations that I was having recently with my sister, and she was saying, personal growth is for people that are brave
I like that.
because you have to go to get to know you,
Mhm.
really go deep in you to be able to understand your strengths and your weaknesses.
I like
And
that.
sometimes God is giving us a message throughout, like the conversation that we had this morning. So that was inside joke.
Not a lot of them. I'm sorry, but we do.
Yeah. So let's talk about how self-doubt shows up. There's different symptoms. One of them, for example, that we second guess our decisions.
Oh yeah, even small ones.
Yes. Another one is procrastinate and also feeling that we're not ready. That perfectionism. Sometimes we protect ourselves. I say for myself, sometimes I protect myself saying I'm not ready. And the only way that you can get ready is by trying.
Mhm.
Another one is avoid speaking up. And really because you don't want it to feel dumb in front of people.
That's something that I suffer from a lot because women always have these things that they don't ever want to be called. And there's some really bad names that sometimes women get very upset about. But you could call me a lot of things, but don't ever call me stupid. I know it's not normal. Call me a lot of bad words, which I mean, I'm not going to love, but I'm not going to get as upset as if you call me stupid. So there are times that I have avoided speaking up because I don't want to look stupid.
Yeah. And sometimes when we go through that process, even for speaking up, for example, me moving from another country that I knew the language, let's say, in my country, it's not the same when you go and you go to that place and you have to speak and they feel your accent and stuff like that. it's hard sometimes to be able to speak up and you feel free, especially in the work environment, because
Yep.
you really think, oh my gosh, I'm going to pronounce it right. So your brain goes to all these type of questions that you prefer to shut up, not say anything. Yeah. So it took me a process for me to go and overcome that.
Mhm.
And I remember I started doing it. I was reading this book from Joe Dispenza. Joe Dispenza. Um, I forgot the name. But I was reading that book, and it's about meditation and your brain. And I put that I wanted to really speak up. I wanted to show up in the meetings.
Mhm.
So that was my goal of the day. I start just saying hello in the meetings. I start with that. Next time the conversation. So I was progressing little by little every day until I feel some confidence when I was talking. But also I would say that it helped a lot the person that was my leader, my manager, because he told me you need to speak up, because when I talk to you in private, I see that you have a lot of good information, share with the rest. And that helped me to get some confidence. So yes, manager,
Good.
you can help a lot your team by letting you know and believe in them.
That's
And
awesome.
then another one is that, for example, we stay busy but never feel fulfilled.
Mhm.
So that's another
Yeah.
symptom.
And it's not necessarily a motivation problem. A lot of people think, "Oh, I'm so lazy or I'm inconsistent or something," but it's self-doubt kind of disguising itself. And we've talked about this before because it has shown up in many aspects of our lives. And one that you and I both have suffered from, and that has it almost kept us from starting this podcast, is perfectionism.
Yeah.
And that is a form of self-doubt, because you're worried that if it's not perfect, I'm not going to do it. People pleasing is another one that shows up a lot for a lot of people. But one that I think so many people are going to be familiar with is constant exhaustion. Odd, I know. I think we all do that. And that comes from a culmination of everything. You're fighting this desire of you're needing to do this, you're wanting to do this, but you can't do it because you're afraid to do it. And it's just like a fight in your own body. And it's just really sneaky, and it can be very subtle. But if you leave it unchecked, it's going to shrink your life to fit your fear.
Wow, that's profound.
I think that's kind of scary when you think about it in those terms. It is kind of profound, but we will never get out of that if we don't take that step.
Yes, absolutely true. And let me tell you, if you keep waiting to be ready, you will never be ready.
Very
and
true.
We will be waiting forever.
Yep.
Because in reality, the only way that we can overcome self-doubt, it's by doing it, by proving yourself wrong. And it's not just writing it out. It's through action that will give you that confidence to help you build yourself and start piling little successes.
Yes.
And that will start giving you that confidence. Like I said before, I start by just saying good mornings in the meetings. And then it continued. And now I'm in a podcast in another language that is not my language. so you can work on that.
It's a perfect example that confidence doesn't show up first. The action shows up first. Yes. So you don't have to be fearless to move forward. And that was actually what I titled our podcast today, this episode, because it's very true. You just more committed to the future that you want than the fear that you currently have.
Yes.
And that's really hard to break free from. A lot of people, I'm one, and I'm saying a lot of people, include me in that, rehearse worst case scenarios all the time. What could go wrong? What if? Blah, blah, blah. And so you need to start building the evidence that you're actually capable and that you're stronger than the doubt that you have.
Yes.
That sounds kind of strange. So we're going to tell you how to do that.
But let me add to that, that you said a lot of people practice
worst case scenarios.
Also, I remember the sales guy that was bringing millions at the organization. Before each meeting, he spend a few days preparing for that
Yeah.
meeting, rehearsing for that meeting that that person was going to, and he have years in the sales environment.
Mm-hmm.
So, which give us to your point, yeah, even people that are high performers and in their position, they can feel self-doubt if they go and they meet with someone that is in another rank, let's say,
Yes.
calling that they are not. They're going to feel uncomfortable and they're going to have the self-doubt. But they practice to make sure that what they say, it's towards the results that they're looking for.
Different audience, you're going to get different results. So it can be scary, even for professional people, professional speakers or anything else. It's the unknown, you know?
Correct.
All right, well, let's get practical and talk about how we can do this. And like Indira said earlier, you can't wish this away. You can't write it away, but you can learn how to work with it and work through it. So here's how. The first thing you can do is catch a thought. And what I mean by that is to be aware. Be aware that you're feeling this way. If you're feeling stuck or you're feeling like you just can't move forward, you need to stop and ask yourself, what is it that I'm telling myself right now? You know, are you talking yourself doing something that you should be doing, that you want to be doing? You know, really take that moment and be like, what's happening here?
Yes. Another one is challenge it. Challenge that inner voice that it's telling you that you're not ready, and ask, is this absolutely true? Is this fear of speaking, for example, something real? What did I face when I was a child? What experience did I had that it's stopping me to continue moving forward today? Because sometimes we are so stuck on our past that it doesn't allow us to move forward, and therefore we continue living in the past. So let's challenge that as well.
Exactly. You know, I used to worry all the time, kind of going back to the the worst case scenario. I used to do that a lot and worry all the time. And I got to the point, crazy when they still do this, I have to do it more.
I couldn't hear you.
Got to the point. Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay now?
No, just sorry.
Can you hear me? Do I have to eat my mic?
I got to the point.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say it's weird. I think we're having some technical issues because for a minute you froze again too. So it is technology. It's our friend and our enemy. Anyways, I got to the point where I was worrying so much that there would be times it would consume me in certain scenarios, and I would physically say out loud, "Stop, stop, stop," and it was enough to redirect my thought and get me out of my worry pattern. So it's, you know, you do what you can and, you know, try whatever's going to work. I know it sounds a little crazy, but it worked for me. And now I am not a constant worrier. I'm not always looking at worst case scenario, and I've gotten a little bit braver.
That's fantastic. But also, I think one of the things that can help with that process is also create evidence. Look at your wins, even if it's big or small. Write it down. Take pictures, read testimonial, because your brain sometimes forgets, and we tend to forget. We don't forget the things that really emotional trigger, very negative side, almost stay there because it's trying to protect us. But then the positive one, we tend to minimize it.
Yep.
But if someone else does it, we think it's the end of the world, but we tend to minimize it when we look at ours. So let's remind ourselves with those evidence, and take small actions, bold actions, build confidence. And the only way that you can build confidence is through motion. So one tiny courageous steps creates momentum if you consistently redo it.
Exactly. One thing that I really love is a step you can try that is detoxing your circle. Now, I know a lot of people get into, you know, unfriending people on Facebook and all that. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is your real circle. Like if you're surrounded by people who downplay your dreams and fuel your fears or anything like that, it's time to clean house. It doesn't mean that you're going to surround yourself with a bunch of yes people or anything like that, because you still need people who are going to give you reality checks. But it does mean that you need more people who support you than people who are dream crushers around you.
Oh, that's so important,
because
hard. Sometimes even those people are our loved ones.
I was going to say our families.
Yeah.
I'm not, please, if my family's listening, I'm not talking about you.
No, me either. But
they've actually been our greatest supports, our families.
Yes. So, but sometimes it gets hard. And this goes to upgrade your habits.
Mhm.
Because if you surround with the right circle, then you can look for people that are focusing on the habits that you wanted to create. So that last week we were talking about mindset, and we were saying that mindset without an action is a dream. So again, that's something that we wanted to emphasize here. If you want to feel confident, if you wanted to really show up consistently for yourself, you need to also work on those habits that demonstrate to you, to your brain, that that's really what you're looking for.
Yeah, because self-trust is built like yourself. And sometimes that's really hard to do. But when you show up for yourself, even in small ways, you really start to believe, you know what? I can do this. I've got it. And you can, think on those things when you're showing up at times. I don't know if I can do this.
I,
Times
I
that
think
you did do that.
when you, I think it's when you do that.
I got to stop moving. You take my mic with me.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're ever at a time where you're like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. Think about all the times you thought that before, that you're like, I can't do this, but you went ahead and did it anyways.
Yes. And let's ask ourselves, what would you try if self-doubt wouldn't be something that really stopped you?
Yeah, exactly. It's funny, years ago, when I was studying to become a realtor, and for anybody out there who is a realtor knows that test is hard and you study for a long time. So I was at the mall when malls existed and I bought myself a magnet for my fridge, and it was one of those typical ones that's saying, what would you do if you knew you could not fail? And it really kept me motivated. And it has a whole different meaning in my life now, because it has opened up a space in my mind that has allowed me to actually dream bigger. When we think, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? Well, I'd buy a lottery ticket. That's not what it means.
That.
And for each time that I have had a dream and gone for it, like my first time, becoming a realtor, then I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. So then I thought bigger next time. What else could I do if I knew I couldn't fail? Because I did do that. And then it has just allowed my dreams to get bigger and bigger, and for me to keep trying.
That's a great thing to do. And the important thing is that you saw that it was working for one aspect, and you continue implement it, and that helps you to make bold decisions. Absolutely. So that's one perfect question that people can ask themselves, or they can even ask, what is the version of you that is waiting on the other side of courage?
See, I love that. That is something that I actually implement in coaching.
Yes, because specifically we have to make sure that we let our mind dream, but not focus it from the self-doubt version, but from the possibility version. And for us that we're Christian and people of faith, there's a whole world that we know that God dream bigger than we do. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
I love it. Oh, that's a good long conversation we need to actually get into. Maybe we'll do a podcast episode on that sometime, about God's purpose for our life. Both you and I are believers, and I'm hoping that some of our followers, that listen to us, are believers also. And that could be a great episode.
That's fantastic.
Yep. Well, this has been a lot of fun, and I really hope that we have helped a lot of people. So let this be your wake-up call, because you do not have to wait to feel confident to take some action. Action is actually what creates your confidence. So you don't have to wait until you feel brave, but you just have to start.
Yes. And believe. I think you're more ready than what you think.
Oh, yeah.
You just need to believe in your abilities. Like we said, try to figure it out along the way. You don't see it, and I think we mentioned that if I go, for example, to your house, I don't know what's going to happen on the way. I just can see a little far from my street. So most cases we have to figure it out along the way, but with actions and making bold decisions is that really is going to take you to that side.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, everybody, thank you so much again for joining us on another episode of Find Your Wise Podcast. You can find us on Find Your Wise Podcast Facebook group. Join us there. We have little clips on Instagram, YouTube throughout the week. If you do like this, think you can help anybody else, make sure to hit that like button so that we can get more in the algorithm, and share this with somebody else who you think might like it.
Yes. Have a great one, everyone. See you next time.
Bye.